Well, it is 1 p.m. I'm calling the joint meetings of the Board of Retirement Board of Investments to order. Today being Friday, December 9th at 1 p.m. Buddy, would you
Linda.
make the announcement? Linda, would you please make the
Thank
announcements?
Thank you, Chair Santos. This meeting is being conducted as a virtual meeting as in person. So I will do a roll call the trustees to confirm attendance. We will start with the Board of Retirement Trustees. Mr. Knox.
Good afternoon, I'm here.
Thank you. Ms. Gray.
Good morning. Oh, it's not morning. Good afternoon.
Thank you. Mr. Santos.
Present.
Mr. Sanchez.
Present.
Thank you. Mr. Moore.
I'm here.
Mr. Kehoe.
Hello, everybody. Present.
Thank you. Mr. Robbins.
Present.
Thank you. Mr. Harris.
Present.
Thank you. Ms. Greenwood.
Good afternoon. I'm here.
Thank you. Mr. Bernstein. Mr. Pryor.
I'm here. Good afternoon.
Thank you. And now Board of Investment Trustees, Mr. Knox is here. Mr. Green.
Here, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kehoe's here. Ms. Greenwood's here. Mr. Jones. Mrs. Jones. Mr. Kelly. Ms. Sanchez.
Here.
Okay, and Chair Santos is here. Staff participating in the meeting include the following: CEO Santos Kryman, Chief Counsel Stephen Rice, DCEO Louis Lugo, Legislative Affairs Officer Barry Liu, Director of Human Resources Carly Natoya. Manny Epscall from Latham and Watkins will be joining us later. We also have Mazen Bouzendine, Sam Maury Holmes, and Jonathan Cahill from Beacon Economics. Trustees, please use the Zoom raise your hand option to be placed in the queue. At this time, we ask all meeting participants to mute your mics until you're ready to speak. And now we may proceed with the agenda.
Thank you, Linda. The next item of the agenda is approval of the minutes for September 23rd, 2022.
So moved.
So moved.
I'll second.
It's been moved and second. Any
I'll second.
changes?
So for the Board of Retirement, Mr. Knox made the motion.
I'll
And-
second for
Okay, Mr. Kehoe seconded. And for the Board of Investments,
Mr. Kelly was,
Mr. Kelly made the motion.
I can second that for BOI if it helps.
Okay, and Mr. Green seconded. Board of Retirement Trustees, Mr. Knox,
aye.
Ms. Gray,
Aye.
Mr. Santos,
Aye.
Mr. Sanchez,
Aye.
Mr. Moore,
Aye.
Mr. Kehoe,
Aye.
Mr. Robbins.
Aye.
I don't see Mr. Bernstein yet. Okay, the motion passes unanimously. Board of Investment. What?
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. For the Board of Investment, Mr. Knox,
Aye.
Mr. Green,
Aye.
Mr. Kehoe,
Aye.
Ms. Greenwood,
Aye.
Mr. Kelly, Ms. Sanchez,
Aye.
and Chair Santos.
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes unanimously.
Great, thank you very much. The next item of the agenda is public comment.
Okay, we do have a public comment. Let me just see if they have joined us. 1 second. Alex. Hold on just 1 second. Okay, we have Tom Cohen, who's going to be addressing the board. Tom, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm here. I'm ready.
Great, and you will have 3 minutes to address the board.
Thank you. Hello, I'm the chief steward of our workplace. 1 year ago, I spoke to you about what we saw as poor judgment on behalf of the executive office. Today, I sadly return, not just for myself, but on behalf of many staff members who are deeply concerned about their well-being and the well-being of their families. These union members have been confronted by the harsh reality that management is unyielding in their remote work policy. Despite an assurance to work with the union during MOU negotiations last year, they have shown intransigence and inflexibility. The executive office has established a ghost council of anonymous members with the power to determine the validity of the opinions of medical doctors. They have denied many staff with real medical exemptions. These individuals have approached me for help. Unfortunately, I cannot help them because I cannot even help myself, since I am also unable to face this faceless crowd who gets to review our medical information and decide without recourse or appeal whether what a doctor says is true. This ghost council has dictatorial power over our private information and yet has refused to accommodate anyone, even a member who is in cancer recovery. Since I have more respect for the staff than this council, I reluctantly speak only of my own story here. In October, a doctor wrote me a letter of medical exemption asking for the option for remote work. This should not be an issue since I fulfilled my job perfectly for the last 3 years. However, this ghost council determined that what my doctor said is false and then placed myself and others onto FMLA or disability rather than easily accommodate them. Why is this? There are only 3 explanations. First, they are all medical doctors and they understand my needs better than my physician. Second, they do not believe that anyone could perform their duties remotely. Or finally, they have solved their ongoing underemployment and recruitment problem. Obviously, all 3 of these are categorically untrue. However, there is one last explanation, and it is much more sinister. Last summer, we informed you that the HR director personally confronted and intimidated staff at a union on-site meeting. This Tuesday was to be the first time the union planned to meet on-site since then. As the chief steward, I was to lead this meeting. However, the day before, without warning, I received a letter placing me on medical leave instead of telework accommodation, effective immediately. They stated that although my doctor's note was insufficient for telework, it simultaneously held the circumstances for medical leave. Finally, today, the county announced that COVID transmission has increased to a high level, and despite previous assurances, management has yet to place everyone on a temporary emergency telework protocol. They do not care. They are denialists and Republicans. I conclude with this thought. The CEO, Mr. Kryman, is scheduled to receive his merit increase today. I encourage you to vote yes on this motion because I do unto others as I would have done unto me. I hope that with this merit increase, you can encourage him to earn it and demonstrate real ethics and merit rather than relying on outdated, obsolete workplace practices and union busting. I encourage you to guide the executive team to re-examine how they treat their unionized workforce. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you. That concludes public comment. Is that true, Linda?
Yes, that's correct.
All right, thank you very much. Moving forward, next item on the agenda is the non-consent item, subsection 8. This is a recommendation from Mr. Pryor and myself regarding the CEO. Mr. Toya, do you have any comments here?
Good morning, Chair Santos, and good morning, members of the board. Oh, geez, it is afternoon. Good afternoon to everyone. So before the boards consider this motion, I do have a statement regarding the Board Act that needs to be read. Prior to taking any final action, the legislative body shall orally report a summary of a recommendation for final action on the salaries, salary schedules, or compensation paid in the form of fringe benefits of a local agency executive as defined in subsection D of section 3511.1 during the open meeting in which the final action is to be taken. This paragraph shall not affect the public's right under the California Public Records Act, chapter 3.5, commencing with section 6250 of division 7 of Title I, to inspect or copy records created or received in the process of developing this recommendation. So the recommendation would include includes a 5% merit increase along with a 3% COLA. Should this go forward, Mr. Kryman's current salary of $447,975 would change with the 5% merit increase to $470,374, and with the 3% COLA increase, $484,485.
Great, thank you, Ms. Latoya. I will entertain a motion, discussions. The floor is open.
I'll move it for the Board of Retirement.
This is Keith. I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and second for the Board of Retirement. Motion for the
Mr.
Board of Investments.
Mr. Kelly made a motion
For the BOI.
for the BOI.
It's Keith. I'll second for BOI too.
There you go.
Sorry.
Okay, it's been moved and second as well for the Board of Investments. Any discussions? I don't see any requests to speak, no hands. If that's true, I will roll call.
Mr. Knox,
Aye.
Ms. Gray,
Aye.
Mr. Santos,
Aye.
Mr. Sanchez,
Aye.
Mr. Moore,
Aye.
Mr. Kehoe,
Aye.
Mr. Robbins.
Aye.
I don't see Mr. Bernstein. Okay, the motion passes unanimously for the Board of Investments. Mr. Knox?
Aye.
Mr. Green?
Aye.
Mr. Kehoe?
Aye.
Ms. Greenwood?
Aye.
Mr. Jones?
Aye.
Okay, was that a yes?
Yes, aye.
Ms. Jones is not here. Mr. Kelly? Ms. Sanchez?
Aye.
And Chair Santos?
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes unanimously.
Great, thank you. That concludes the non-consent items, reports. Mr. Kryman, this is regarding the economic impact study.
Good afternoon, Chair Santos. I'll take that from Mr. Kryman, who briefly stepped out. So I want to, good afternoon.
You need to speak into the mic.
Is it on?
Turn it on too. Okay, can you hear me now? Mic check.
Yes, yes.
Good afternoon, Chair Santos, committee, joint board members.
Still difficult.
We can introduce Beacon.
With
Can you hear me okay? Still?
no.
No.
Okay, can you hear me now? I can hear myself, so suppose a lot better. So good afternoon, Chair Santos and joint board members. I want to briefly introduce Beacon Economics. So I want to highlight Barry Lou as well in terms of our internal staff. About 4 months ago or so, we went to an engagement with Beacon Economics to really outline our economic impact as it relates to LACERA, our members, and its impact on LA County. So Beacon Economics and their team will be going over a presentation that outlines our economic impact. This is a standard of practice in the public pension world. So we look forward to their highlights. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Mason to introduce the team and go over the presentation.
Thank you so much, everyone, for having us today. Members of the LACERA team, everyone who's kind of supported us throughout this process as we dive into the economic, fiscal, and social impacts of LACERA pensioners. My name is Mazen Bouzaneddine. I'm the manager for impact analysis at Beacon Economics, and I'm joined by my colleagues, Sam and Jonathan. Clicker. Oh, can you click? Okay. What's that?
Say next slide.
So to start off with, I just wanted to talk briefly a little bit about the purpose of the study and why this is really beneficial for all the stakeholders involved. As a trend, historically, defined benefits, can we please go back to the previous slide? As a trend historically, defined benefits have been shown to bring in higher than average rates of returns for pensioners and really being beneficial for all the stakeholders involved, whether it's taxpayers, employers, and employees. Due to the nature of the structure of defined benefits plans, as a result of pooling in large numbers of investors and retirees, there is lower costs on the employee, as well as mitigating a lot of the risk that comes with other various retirement plans, such as defined contribution benefits. So why is it important to conduct an impact analysis? Well, an impact analysis is designed to show what the impacts are beyond what the direct spending of a pensioner might be. Assessing pensions and retirees has become common practice So, for example, in California, we see that with CalPERS, but also on a national level, we see that with studies done by Pensionomics and the National Institute on Retirement Securities. Our goal here is we see a shift in demographics, and that's been going on for quite a few years as an aging population. So we really want to highlight what the benefits are of a defined benefit pensions in terms of offering a constant stream of revenue to the economy, and how that's going to become even more important down the line. Next slide, please. Yep.
You said that on the first slide, you implied that defined contribution plans are not professionally managed. And I just want to clarify, in Los Angeles County, defined contribution plans are professionally managed.
I think that was more so broadly also like with regards to other forms of retirement plans. So for example, like IRAs and stuff like that. And it's not specifically just for defined contributions plans in a public setting as well. We're talking more broadly, just comparatively to other retirement plans in general.
Can Mr. Kelly repeat the question, because we cannot hear you? And also, if you need to say, ask a question, please raise your hand accordingly. Mr. Kelly, can you repeat the question?
I apologize. My comment was that
I can't hear him.
Joe, you need to turn on your mic. It's red. You have to touch the little red
His
part.
mic is on. We're working on it. So 1 second.
Oh,
His
okay.
mic is on. Sorry.
Someone forget to feed the gremlins last night?
Go ahead.
Thank you, Linda. My comment was that on the first slide, it said, it made a reference to the fact that defined contribution plans are not professionally managed. And my comment was, in Los Angeles County, the defined contribution plans are professionally managed, and they're under the jurisdiction of a plan administrative committee on which the current treasurer tax collector sits. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You can proceed with the presentation, please.
Thank you. With this slide, I really want to touch base here about the lens that the Beacon team took in order to conduct this analysis. We'll split it into two parts, a quantitative assessment and a qualitative assessment. When it comes to the quantitative assessment, first and foremost, we wanted to do a deep dive onto where the spending is going to go from the pensioners and assessing the amount of money that's going to be disaggregated by region. And then we're going to aggregate that into what we call a total direct spending by expenditure type, so by industry. And then finally, we construct a multi-regional input-output analysis of LACERA pensioners, where we examine where the ripple effects of these of the expenditures by the pensioners are impacting and benefiting the various industries in and around Los Angeles County and California overall. When it comes to the qualitative assessment, we're more so taking a deep dive into the background and portfolio on the LACERA pensioners, examining age demographics, racial and ethnic composition. Further along, we're looking at comparing salary metrics to countywide averages, healthcare costs, and other variables where we compare based on the geography of where the pensioners reside, which is in this case, Los Angeles County. And then finally, we're assessing a total social and community impacts, which is non-quantitative in nature, derived by LACERA pensioners to the communities in which they respectively reside. Next slide, please. So to start off with, just giving a little bit of a background about the importance of such studies, is nationwide, not just in LA, not just in California, we're faced with an aging population. The average age for the past few years has been going up. And as we can see from the charts here, the age groups, specifically 65 and older, have been increasing. When we examine, for example, younger age working groups, so starting at, for example, 25 up until 64, these age groups between 2011 and 2021 in Los Angeles County have been relatively unchanged. What we do see a drastic change is in the age group of under 25, dropping from roughly 3.5 million individuals in 2011 to just under 3 million in 2021. And comparatively, we see a 31% increase in populations aged 65 and older. To be more specific, in 2011, roughly 1.07 million individuals in LA County were age 65 and older. Now that's closer to 1.5 million. And if we look at the graph on the right, where it's on a statewide level here, this shows a forecast trend of population for individuals age 65 and older. If we start from the actuals, which was estimated to be in 2010, $4.3 million, 4.3 million people, that comprised roughly 11.5% of the population. So approximately roughly one in 10 people were age 65 and older. As the time goes by, that number is going to increase, and the share of individuals age 65 and over is going to increase as well. So comparatively, if we look at 2050, for example, 40 years down the line from 2010, we're going to have an estimated 11.3 million people age 65 and over, comprising 26% of the population. So almost 1 in 4 people are estimated to be age 65 and over by 2050. And that just highlights, when we think of this economically, the share of consumer spending is going to have a greater reliance on individuals age 65 and over as time goes by. So that's why these kinds of analyses are super important, so we can touch upon where these benefits and where these impacts are occurring. Next slide, please. Before we dive into the specific data and the economic impacts, I just want to briefly go over some of the methodology and specifically the key terms that we're going to be hearing throughout this presentation. To start with, direct impact, that's the economic activity that's generated directly through LACERA pensioner spending. So for example, a pensioner receives their paycheck after savings, after taxes, they go out and they go to a restaurant. That check where they spend at the restaurant is going to be considered a direct spend. Subsequently, there's what's called an indirect impact, that's also known as supply chain impact or business to business transactions. That's the economic activity that's generated via the supply chain. So let's think back to our restaurant example. Once that pensioner pays that check, that restaurant is going to take a portion of that money and it's going to restock on goods that it needs. It's going to go to wholesale, it's going to go to retail, it's going to go to various goods distributors and vendors and restock on the goods that it needs. That additional economic impact is captured under the indirect impact here. And finally, with regards to the economic impacts, we have the induced impact. That's the economic activity that's generated through the workers. So if we think back to our pensioner going to the restaurant example, the workers that are working at the restaurant and the subsequent supply chain firms that are benefiting from that transaction, whether it's the wholesale, whether it's the retail, whether it's the vendor, all those workers are going to be benefiting from that initial spending that the pensioner spent on. And they're going to take that money home and they're going to spend it on goods and services and rent and healthcare, et cetera. All that worker spending or household spending is going to be captured under the induced impact. And then, oh, sorry, I just had one more. And then finally, we have the social impact, which is the community and social benefits of LACERA pensioners. That's aside from the economic and fiscal, that's more qualitative. So for example, a LACERA pensioner going out and volunteering in their local community, that's what we highlight there. Talking about the benefits of a the defined benefits plan, constantly providing revenue streams during even an economic downturn, those are community benefits. So that's what we highlight in this section. Next slide, please. So here we have a breakdown of LACERA pensioners by region. So to start with, nationwide, there's just under 73,400 pensioners in the United States. The overwhelming majority of them, about 82%, reside in California. So that's just over 60,500 people. And in that, the majority of those reside in Los Angeles County. So 42,308 pensioners in Los Angeles County, more than half, almost 60% of the nationwide pensioners. The remaining reside in various different counties around SoCal and other places throughout California. But I want to highlight this because the focus of our study specifically here is examining what these 42,300 pensioners residing in Los Angeles County provide for the local and broader community. So that's the source of spending that we're examining here as the driver to build our model to estimate where the ripple effects are going and which industries are going to be benefiting. Next slide, please. So in this slide, we have a breakdown of where the pensioners reside by supervisorial district, as well as the amount of pensions that's paid out to those respective regions. The largest by far is reside in District 5. That's just under 10,500 pensioners. And unsurprisingly, that they also share the largest amount of pension amount paid annually. That's just under 625 million, or 26.5% of the total pensions paid throughout Los Angeles County annually. This is followed by District 4 with just over 9,200 pensioners, or about 22%. And then lastly, District 1 with 9,160 pensioners, approximately, or 22%. District 3 comprises the lowest amount of pensioners residing in any supervisorial district. That's about 4,250, or roughly 10%. And the total pensions amount paid there is just over $250 million. But as we'll see in the next few slides, the contributions that District 3 has just due to the supply chain and business transaction is pretty significant as well. Next slide, please. So what are the actual impacts? Where do the ripple effects goes, and what's actually happening with regards to this direct spending? So just right off the bat.
Let me stop you here 1 second. Mr. Knox.
Yes, thank you, Chair Santos. Just quickly, and it's not a huge issue, obviously. On the last slide, that was interesting. I've never seen it broken down by supervisorial district before. Just curious if the timing of that, was that before they redrew the district boundaries, or is that with the current updated boundaries?
This is, I believe, as of May 2022. So this is after, I assume, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So here we have the economic impacts that are generated by the LA-based LACERA pensioners throughout Los Angeles County. Right off the bat, just the direct spending. So the pensioners taking their money after savings, after the tax rates, and going to spend in the local economy is generating $1.9 billion annually throughout Los Angeles, California, and quite substantially supporting over 20,100 jobs in a variety of industries. Not only that, it's pretty significant also the secondary impacts, or the impacts that are created through the indirect and induced impacts as well. Specifically with indirect impacts, as a reminder, that's the supply chain and business to business transactions. We see just under 3,100 jobs supported annually just through businesses engaging in transactions with other firms and establishments. And as a result, generating just shy of $730 million annually in economic impact. In fact, when we take into account both indirect and induced, it accounts for 30% of the total of economic impact that's derived as a result of spending done by LACERA pensioners in Los Angeles County. So what does that mean when we break it down by district? There are some mirroring of what we saw in the previous slide. So the largest impacts does occur in District 5 at $606 million generated annually in economic output. That's followed by District 1 with just shy of $587 million, and District 4 at 530. But if we take a look at District 3 here, it's pretty interesting because of the concentration of businesses there. Despite the fact that district only roughly $250 million was allocated in pensions annually, it still generates almost twice as much as the money that's provided there. So almost $436 million being generated in District 3. And that's just an indication of how complex the Los Angeles economy really is. You know, you might reside in one certain supervisorial district, but for leisure and hospitality, you might go to another one. And so the way the supply chains interact with each other is in a similar manner as well. One might be in District 1, one might be in District 5. So there's complex intricacies when it comes to calculating these total output. But despite the fact that District 3 had roughly $250 million in direct spending, the total amount is almost $500 million. Next slide, please. Thank you. So where is this broken down when we examine it under the hood in terms of industries? And we aggregated these 4 super sectors to kind of give an understanding of where this money is going. And this is the direct impact. So this is the money once pensioners receive their check, where are they spending this money at? And overwhelmingly, most of the money is going to housing and real estate. That's the largest beneficiary of the direct spending at $713 million. And that includes both renters and owner-occupied dwellings. This is followed by finance, banking, and insurance. And this includes a smattering of subsectors from investment activities to insurance agencies, monetary authorities, et cetera. And That's generating roughly $317 million in economic output annually. The last two, retail, leisure, and hospitality, unsurprisingly, also one of the top industries where pensioners spend their money. Retail specifically, this can go from building materials to clothing stores to food and beverage. We're seeing $105 million injected into the economy in Los Angeles just from LACERA pensioners residing in LA. And then lastly, leisure and hospitality. This includes restaurants, food and drinking places, any entertainment services, et cetera. That's just shy of $100 million. And really, this last industry, leisure and hospitality, is quite interesting because, as we all know, defined benefit plans, it provides a constant fixed stream of income when someone retires. And that's even in economic downturns. So usually leisure and hospitality industries are the most vulnerable when it comes to economic downturns. You know, people save more, they're less likely to go out and eat, but a household that's receiving a constant fixed stream of income is still likely to, in some way, maybe less than what normal is, but it's still likely to go and support these industries one way or another. So there really is an added benefit from defined benefit plans towards that end. And in total, these four super sectors combined, they generate $1.2 billion in the Los Angeles economy annually, or over 63% of the total direct economic output. And here we move on to the secondary impacts, again, with the same four sectors, but we see the amount of impact generated shifts a little bit. And that's not really that surprising. When we think of housing and real estate from a secondary impact standpoint, that's from supply chain and induced, most of that money is coming from the induced impacts. That's because workers who work in various different establishments that are supported by LACERA pensioners spending their money, they're going to take a portion of that money and they're going to pay it on their rents or mortgages, etc. So that amounts to roughly $86 million annually. That also includes establishments paying commercial leases, for example. The largest impact actually also occurs in finance, banking, and insurance. And when we think back to the last two slides where we said there's 23,600 employees that are supported annually by LACERA pensioners' spending. This really isn't all that surprising, considering that a lot of those employees are going to need to have their insurance paid for by the businesses. There's going to be investment activity from those employees themselves, professional service firms like accounting firms that rely on these establishments that are supported by LACERA pensioners. So as a result, all these forms of spending is going to generate roughly $358 million only through secondary impacts. The last two are retail and leisure and hospitality. Again, these are mainly driven by the worker and household spendings, aka the induced impacts. For retail, that's roughly $12.5 million annually. For leisure and hospitality, that's almost $21 million annually. So combined, these four super sectors, just solely from secondary impacts, from indirect and induced, they almost generate $500 million annually throughout Los Angeles County, or accounting roughly 59% of the total secondary output generated. So we've talked in depth about the impacts here locally in Los Angeles County, but I want to mirror that to what the statewide impacts are. From a job standpoint, almost 25,000 jobs are supported statewide as a result of LACERA pensioners spending their money. In terms of direct impact, that's going to stay the same because Los Angeles County's economy is so big. It's just likely that all the pensioners are going to directly spend their money within the county. It's unlikely that someone who lives in central LA is going to go to Orange County for groceries, shopping, everything. All the establishments you need are likely to be in the county itself. But where it does differ is in the secondary impacts, for example, indirect and induced. So business-to-business transactions are more likely to occur at a macro level than just simply in LA County. So, for example, the Inland Empire is a huge hub of logistics. So if we go back to the restaurant example, it's likely that a lot of goods is transported from the Inland Empire with establishments that engage with those firms. So that's going to be captured here under the indirect. So in total, almost $1.1 billion is generated statewide through secondary impacts alone. So due to limited supply chain availabilities here, we see that California's impacts are 21% greater than LA County's from an indirect impact standpoint, and induced impacts just because of LA County drawing so many commuters for it, from so many neighboring counties, induced impacts are almost twice as high. But even nonetheless, keeping that in mind, LA County still absorbs over 90% of the total statewide economic output just because of the size and magnitude of the economy of Los Angeles. Next slide, please. So we've talked in depth about the economic impacts. I want to turn it over just a little bit for the fiscal impacts now. Annually, state and local government tax revenues generated from LACERA pensioners is over $150 million. And this is where it gets pretty significant for these local communities as well, because if we take a look, the largest sources of revenue are in sales tax and property tax. And now a lot of that does go to the state and then is reinvested and is distributed all over, but a lot of these funds are going to come back to help support local social programs, education, criminal justice, infrastructure, etc. So these are funds that are being generated for local government agencies that are extremely beneficial to the local community overall. On a federal level, we see over $185 million generated in total tax revenue. The largest sources coming from income tax and social insurance, which is unsurprising just given the total amount of employment supported, and as a result, just from the wages, the total amount of income tax that's going to be generated. If we, sorry, just one sec. If we take a look on the chart on the right here, we have it broken down by supervisorial district. So we see again, district number 5 is the largest producer of fiscal impacts from LACERA pensioners at 83 million, followed by district 1 at 71, and then district 4 at 68. And district 3, while the largest, again, while it has the smallest concentration of LACERA pensioners, it's only 2 million shy away from district 2 as a result of its significant economic activity. Next slide. So I want to shift it now just to talk a little bit more about the demographics and the portfolio of LACERA pensioners, starting with the age group. We did a little bit of analysis, and we found, unsurprisingly, overwhelmingly, most of the LACERA pensioners are age 65 and over, roughly 82%, or about 34,000 of the 42,000 pensioners residing in Los Angeles County. What's real interesting is when we dove into the ethnic and racial composition for LACERA pensioners, and we compared that to LA County. And what we found was the portfolio for LACERA pensioners is quite diverse when compared to the county averages. If we look at the county averages between Hispanic and white individuals, roughly that constitutes roughly 80% of the total population. But amongst the LACERA group, LACERA pensioners, it's pretty evenly distributed across the 4 represented racial and ethnic individuals. All the groups hover between 20 and 30%, and there's no one overwhelming majority, showing a pretty good, a strong diversity and inclusion here. Next slide, please. And I want to talk a little bit here about one of the social impact variables that we discussed. A lot of times volunteering doesn't really get a lot of mention in terms of economics and the benefit that it provides to the economy, but really a lot of this is actual work, whether it's services or producing goods, that is actually super beneficial to the economy. And a lot of it normally goes unpaid and is free. As we can see, usually people who are working are too busy to go volunteer, with hours usually going 55 and below for ages 64 and under. But for individuals who are retired, aka those 65 and older, we see almost 94 hours of volunteering annually that's helping causes and organizations in their local community. And that's exactly what a lot of the LACERA pensioners are doing as well. So there's a massive social benefit to providing pensioners a constant stream of revenue where they don't have to worry about the finances, and they can have a helping hand in their local communities as well. Slide. Thank you. So to kind of summarize, I do want to just go over a lot of the social impacts that we kind of highlighted. So first and foremost, I want to highlight the importance of a defined benefit pension. Consistent fixed monthly income is extremely valuable for an economy because despite the economic condition, whether it's in a boom or it's in a downturn, it gives the household a little bit more comfort to spend consistently as they do, and it helps support vulnerable industries, as we discussed with, for example, with leisure and hospitality. It's as we just discussed, also individuals who are retired have more time on their hand to pursue activities that they want to, and that includes volunteering, which is a form of work when we think about it, and that provides a significant benefit to the local communities in which the pensioners reside in. Next is the diversity in LACERA, which we discussed as well. LACERA's pensioners are highly diverse, especially when we compare it to the makeup of the Los Angeles County economy, where it's pretty equally distributed in terms of the racial and ethnic background of the LACERA pensioners in LA County. And then lastly, just to reiterate, pensioners are of growing importance to the economy overall. When we're saying 1 in 4 people are estimated to be age 65 and over by 2050, that means the economy is going to be heavily reliant on the spending of those individuals. You know, the United States economy is a consumer-based spending. So shifts in demographics mean we need to constantly understand where these shifts in spending are coming from by age groups. And that's why it's highly valuable to conduct analyses to understand the mechanisms in which pensioners such as LACERA pensioners are benefiting industries in both locally and at a more broad level throughout the state. That's it from our end. Take any questions.
Great, thank you very much for your presentation, Mr. Knox.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Really interesting presentation, very good information. One thing I was going to point out on the social impact there, I'm aware of a lot of county retirees, including my wife, that spend a lot of time providing care to elderly parents or friends and the like. And that would be challenging to try and quantify here, but that has a big impact on just, you know, them having access to care, them having transportation to care, quality medical services that they otherwise might be inclined to forego if they did not have that means to get them there. So yeah, I just wanted to comment and add that and appreciate the information. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Mr. Kelly.
Thank you. I agree, excellent presentation, but I had a question. So during the pandemic, people saved more and their debt levels were decreasing. Is there any reason to think that this data is representative more of those events that were specific to the pandemic, or will we, you know, as we come out of the pandemic and people spend more, will debt levels go higher, et cetera? Is this really representative?
So in terms of the direct spending where we allocated that actually dates before the pandemic. So that was spending levels before then, unfortunately, which is an issue here. And that's why we're iterating the importance of this kind of thing. There's not a lot of studies being done on pension spending and where that money goes. There really isn't that much information out there. So we had to utilize the Bureau of Labor Statistics to get estimates from a couple of years ago and then adjust them based off of more recent publicly available data. I definitely think now there's definitely more spending going on comparatively, you know, and we see that in the economy, and we see that's why there's so much inflation going on. There's definitely higher levels of spending. So if we were to run this analysis again for 2022 figures with, for example, taking maybe a survey or something of how people spend their money, I would absolutely see shifts in the spending on a higher level. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kehoe.
Thank you. Excellent presentation, great data. And I think you highlighted something that I wanted to bring up, which is that we should provide this information to both SACers and NCPERS, and we should encourage those organizations to consider funding studies to have this go beyond the LA County area. So I think this is really important data, and especially if we got an academic analysis of it, you know, perhaps those organizations can support some sort of grant to do that study and show the benefits that our defined benefits plan has to the economy to support them, especially since we're in a tough economy now and we can anticipate additional focus on defined benefit plans. We want to be able to push back on that and provide factual data on how much good that our plans do for the economy. So I pushed that one to Mr. Kryman. Hopefully you can run with that and see what we could do with our partners. And I know Vivian's in on the board here with us, so perhaps you can run with that with SACRS. Thank you.
Mr. Kryman?
Yes. Yes, Chair Santos, I just wanted to piggyback on what Mr. Kehoe mentioned. We do have a communication strategy where we are going to send the information to our stakeholders, SACRS, and related associations, just so they can have it. I know that CalPERS just did their study as well. And so we've been looking at that information also, but we do plan on doing some sort of a press release on Monday. We just don't think Friday is a good for news cycle period. So we're going to send that out on Monday. We'll make sure that our stakeholders are aware. We do plan on sharing a truncated version of the information with our members as well. And so we'll begin to disseminate the information as quickly as we possibly can. We also intend on preparing materials so that we can leave behind to legislators, both on the federal side, the state side, and also we'll be sharing the information with our county partners and the Board of Supervisors and the CEO's office. And so we will endeavor to spread the information broadly and try to make ourselves available any questions that individuals may have. I also wanted to recognize not only Beacons for the great work that they did on this particular report. I also wanted to compliment the trustees because they had the foresight when we hired EKA, and Eric Rose is here to make sure that we did this type of a study. And so he's here as well. So I wanted to recognize him and his firm for the good work that they did, helping us coordinate all of this and preparing the report. So with that, that's all the comments that I had, Chair Santos.
Thank you, Mr. Kryman. Mr. Harris?
Yeah, thank you for this presentation. It was very enlightening. I'm hoping now that the rest of the board will give we that are on the board that are retirees a little more respect for what we bring to the economy. That's of course just a joke because all of us deserve that, but it was very, very enlightening. I appreciate the fact that we're going to make this available to all our stakeholders. I hope we go way over and above Call of Duty and giving it to the haters out there. Paul Gann, the Howard Jarvis organizations, when they're constantly hammering on how horrible these public pensions are, we've just really got to make sure that they get the message that, we provide a tremendous, tremendous benefit. And, there's some editorial boards on some rather large newspaper groups in Los Angeles County that control a lot of smaller independent papers that are, they never miss a chance to slap public pensions in the face. And we have got to really go to them and say, look, there's another side to this story. And you need to hear it, and not just once. You need to hear it a couple of times until you understand it. So again, thank you very much. This was very, very enlightening.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Anybody else? Seeing none, I want to echo the different comments by my colleagues. This is very important. I wish we would have had this report in 2005 when we were fighting the governor on these issues. So, but anyway, better late than never. So this is wonderful. And thank you for the management staff for picking up and following through in that request, because this is something that we've been talking about for years, and finally here it is. So thank you very much. And I agree that it needs to be disseminated as wide as possible. Thank you. At this point, I'm moving the agenda forward. The next item is items for staff review. Linda? None?
Sorry, no, we don't.
All right, thank you. Items for future agenda? None?
No, nothing.
Go to the order. Let's do roll call.
Okay. Mr. Knox?
Nothing, thank you.
Mr. Green?
I just want to give a shout out to JJ for all his help assisting me with member issues over these last couple of weeks. Just want to say thank you very much for all your hard work and dedication. Thank you, JJ. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Kehoe?
Nothing.
Thank you. Ms. Greenwood?
I just want to say, I hope everybody has a wonderful holiday coming up. And thank you all very much. That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Greenwood. Mr. Jones?
Nothing, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Kelly?
Nothing, thank you.
Ms. Sanchez?
Nothing, thanks.
Okay, move on to the next part. Ms. Gray?
I would love to commend staff for all the work that they did on this particular project. It was excellent. The information, I agree with everyone else, is excellent. And it really should be disseminated to all of our members and stakeholders. This is information that can be used in widely in terms of how, say, SACRS presents to other trustees in other counties. LA County has always been the big dog next to CalPERS and CalSTRS. We're next in line. We are the top in the county, whereas those other two pension funds are statewide. So I think it's very, very important in terms of disseminating the information. Also, I'd like to, because this is our last meeting of the year, I would like to congratulate all staff, particularly member benefits, quality assurance, and investments for all the work that you do, because it is enabling the information that we just got. If we didn't have those wonderful departments of LACERA, our members wouldn't necessarily be in the position that they are in today. So I thank everyone. And I hope everyone, lastly, has a wonderful holiday. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sanchez?
Thank you. I just want to appreciate the report highlighting just the many benefits of the pension. So thank you all. Happy holidays.
Thank you. Mr. Robbins?
It was a great report. I appreciated it. We should make it prominently displayed somewhere on the LACERA website.
Yeah, it will be.
Thank you, Mr. Robbins. Mr. Harris?
Well, again, I just toast all of my fellow retirees on the incredible amount of economic benefit we bring to the county and the state of California. And I agree with Ms. Gray. I really appreciate staff, all that they've done. Oh, this past year has not been without its challenges also because of COVID and other things, yet they've always risen to the occasion, given us exactly what we've asked for. So I appreciate everything they've done, and please, everyone have wonderful holidays.
Thank you. Mr. Moore?
I would like to recommend that this report doesn't just sit there as a one-time activity, that it's updated on a periodic basis, say every 3 years, because as some of the charts showed previously, the percentage of people over 65 is going to continue to increase in the county, and that means retirees from LACERA are going to be playing a much larger role. All retirees will be playing a much larger role in the economic stability, the viability, and the growth of the region. So don't let it be just one report. Keep this in front of people going forward. So, and then, since this is my last meeting, I want to thank everybody for their support, for all the hard work that you've been doing, board members, all of the staff who reflect what I view as my personal philosophy of public administration, which is standing in between the policymakers and the programs and making sure it all works. So thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Mr. Pryor?
It's all been said well. Thank you, everybody. Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Happy holidays.
Thank you. Santos?
Yes, I just wanted to take a personal privilege. And I wanted to congratulate my oldest daughter who's graduating this week from Cal State San Bernardino with an environmental health major. And then next week I get to fly to UC Berkeley to watch my daughter Hannah graduate from Berkeley with an art history degree. So I got 2 down, 1 more to go. And so a very proud moment for my family. And I also wanted to wish you all a wonderful holiday season. And Mr. Moore, I truly appreciate everything that you've done, both on as a public administrator at the city of Los Angeles, as well as the trustee here. Public service is definitely a calling that you heard and that you've performed very, very well over the course of your life. So thank you for all that you've done for our members over the last, I think 6 years, 8 years. I lost count, but thank you very much. So that's it for me.
Thank you, Steve. Louis, Laura, JJ, Chair Santos.
Great, thank you. I'm not going to mention anything about the report because I already said everything that I needed to say, but I would like to take the opportunity to thank Mr. Wayne Moore for his service. I really appreciate it as a beneficiary. And on behalf of all the members in LACERA, we thank you for your service. You always came prepared. You are always willing to share your wisdom with us, and really appreciate it. And hopefully you come back. And for Mr. Pryor, I understand that today is also your last meeting, and it's going to be joining the ranks of the retirees who will be spending a lot of the money in LA County. Thank you for your service, not only as a county employee, as a firefighter, but also the service that you provided here to LACERA. You and I served the Board of Investments and as well as the Board of Retirement. I always appreciate your wisdom as well. You are always very articulate in your position, and in my humble opinion, you represented our members with full throttle, so to speak. So thank you for your service, and happy holidays for everyone.
Thank you, Herman. I appreciate it. Happy holidays, everybody.
Okay, at this time, we are going to go into executive session, but we need about 5 minutes to clear the room and gear up. So let's take a 5-minute break.
Thank you.